Will Hunting is a young man who works as a janitor. He has a friend, Chucky Sullivan, who drives a blue 1978 Oldsmobile that has seen better days. Will works at MIT, where Professor Gerald is an expert math professor. Professor Gerald gives his students a theorem to prove before the end of the semester.
I also put an advanced Fourier system on the main hallway chalkboard.
He urges them to get on it by saying that only Nobel laureates and astrophysicists have solved it and got their names on the MIT newsletter. Will is mopping the floor when he sees the theorem written on the board for the students to solve. Later that night, Will solves the problem on his mirror. The next day, he again notices the problem unsolved. He then proceeds to write the solution on the board. In the evening, Will and Chucky are playing baseball. Chucky mentions going to a Harvard bar the following week, and Will agrees. Meanwhile, Professor Gerald is attending an MIT alumni reunion. His students ask him about the person who solved the theorem, but he has no idea that the problem is already solved. Even he is surprised to see the solution written on the board. He asks different students if they solved it, but no one comes forward.
Nimish? No way.
Will, Chucky, Morgan, and Billy are watching a kid's baseball game. Will sees his childhood bully standing there with a girl. He tells the others about how he used to beat him in kindergarten. Eventually, they get bored and they leave to get food. While driving, they notice Will's bully misbehaving with a girl. The group picks a fight with him and thrash him soundly. Will is still punching him when the cops show up and arrest Will. It takes 3 people to restrain him. Later, Professor Gerald enters his class and notices an unusual number of students present.
The mystery math magician.
Everyone is curious about the person who solved the theorem. He asks for the mystery person to come up, but no one speaks. They all look at each other, confused. The identity of the mystery genius remains hidden. Afterwards, Will is solving a question on the board, and Gerald spots him. He admonishes him that he can't graffiti over there on the board. Will swears at him and walks away. Gerald looks at the board and realizes Will is the mystery genius who proved the theorem. That night, Will is at the Harvard bar with his friends as planned. Morgan makes fun of him for getting fired from his job as a janitor. Meanwhile, Chucky flirts with 2 Harvard students and lies about having a history class with one of them. A guy named Clark shows up and starts to insult Chucky by showing off his knowledge of history. He belittles Chucky for having little knowledge of the subject. Will jumps into the conversation, outsmarts Clark, and calls him out for plagiarizing his remarks on history. Clark is embarrassed, and he tries to hurl insults back at Will, but he handles the situation well, and Clark backs off. Later, Skylar, who is one of the girls that Chucky was flirting with, comes and talks to Will. She gives him her number, and they discuss going out sometime. Will is visibly happy. The next day, Professor Gerald visits the Buildings and Grounds office in search of Will. He is told that Will didn't come to work today. Professor Gerald finds out that Will got his job through a parole officer. Professor Gerald is taken aback, but he visits Will in court, who is explaining himself for hitting a cop in front of a judge.
By the Constitution of the United States, this is the same
Don't tell me
document
about
which
the
guarantees my
Constitution.
living.
The judge reads out Will's record of misconduct. Apparently, Will lived in different foster homes, getting moved from them due to severe physical abuse. He is indicated and his bail money is fixed at $50,000. Later, he calls Skylar from jail and checks up on her, asking if they could hang out soon. Soon, Professor Gerald visits him in jail and offers to help him out on 2 conditions.
But under 2 conditions. What are those?
1, he will agree to work more on math, and 2, he will see a therapist. Will agrees to work on math, but treats the therapy with disdain. After being bailed out, Will quickly bonds with Professor Gerald over math, and they have a good time. Professor Gerald takes him to different therapists, but he doesn't open up. He keeps mocking all of them and doesn't listen to anybody. At last, Professor Gerald decides to make Will meet with Dr. Sean McGuire, his roommate from college who is a therapist now. Professor Gerald goes to meet Sean, and they talk about how they haven't seen each other since Sean's wife passed away. Gerald convinces Sean to counsel Will, as he's exceptionally intelligent and worth a shot. Will meets with Sean, but he doesn't take him seriously. They talk about random things, but Will is completely uninterested. He starts mocking a painting in Sean's office and ends up saying derogatory comments about Sean's wife. Sean reminds Will of where the boundaries lie and asks him to leave. After Will leaves, Gerald tells Sean that he understands if he doesn't want to see Will again. On the contrary, Sean is ready to see him again next week. Sean stays up the whole night, lost in his thoughts. The next evening, Will and Skylar spend some time together. She talks about her education and plans about going to Stanford after graduating. They enjoy each other's company and have a good time. Later, Will meets Sean according to schedule, and Sean takes him outside to the lake. Sean tells him that he thought about his remarks on the painting, due to which he stayed up all night thinking, and realized that Will is just a kid who doesn't know what he's talking about. He knows Will has never been out of Boston. Sean tells him that he could talk a lot about artistic literature, but he could never explain what it actually smelled like in the Sistine Chapel or how beautiful its ceiling was in person. If asked about women, Will could talk plenty, but could never know what it felt to be truly content in someone's presence. If he was asked about war, Will wouldn't know the first thing about that. He doesn't know real love or loss because he hasn't experienced any of it. While talking, Sean mentions his wife dying due to cancer. He doesn't perceive Will to be a confident man. He concludes that Will is just a scared kid trying to act tough. He can only understand Will if he's willing to open up and talk about his experiences, but he sees that Will is too scared to open up. Sean leaves and Will is lost for words, unable to process what Sean said. Later that evening, Will calls Skylar from a payphone, but he doesn't say anything and ends the call. Will goes to Sean for their therapy session, but he remains quiet throughout and leaves when the time is over. Sean knows Will won't talk unless he wants to. Will continues solving mathematical problems and finds simple solutions to complex problems. Gerald is impressed. Will finally starts talking to Sean. He cracks a joke and boasts about how he went on a date and didn't care to really check in with Skylar again. Sean calls him an amateur. Will insists that he knows what he's doing, saying she's different from other women he has been with. Sean says he should call her, but he says he doesn't want to ruin what he has by getting to know her more, because then their relationship will become dull and boring. Sean mocks him and says that due to his behavior, he will get through life never really knowing anyone. He mentions his own wife's little habits that only he knew about. He says these trivial memories are what truly matter, and people choose who they let into their worlds. He reminds Will that he isn't perfect, and neither is Skylar. Both of them have to figure out if they are good for each other, and the only way to find out is by giving it a shot. Will asks if he ever thought about getting remarried, but Sean shows loyalty to his dead wife. Will uses Sean's own statement against him, saying that he will get through life never really knowing anybody. But Sean's words have an effect on Will, and he goes to visit Skylar. He apologizes for ghosting her and asks if they can go out again. Skylar says she is busy with university work. She has to determine the proton spectrum of ibogamine, a medicinal compound. Disappointed, Will leaves her apartment, but he quickly returns with the answer to her assignment, saying he couldn't wait till later to spend time with her. They attend a dog race together, which Skylar's dog wins. She also gets to know that Will grew up in South Boston and that he has 12 big brothers. Skylar expresses her desire to meet his family. Later, Will asks Sean if he regrets meeting his wife. Sean denies, saying there are pros and cons to everything. Will asks when did he know she was the one for him. Sean then tells him everything. They met at a baseball game. He mentions the highlights of the game, but later says he wasn't even there to watch the whole game because he was spending time with his future wife. Will mocks him for missing out on such an important event, but he doesn't regret the time he spent with his wife. Later, Will and Skylar hook up. She asks him to let her meet with his friends and brothers. He takes her to meet Chucky, Billy, and Morgan. They talk about funny stories and have a good time, but Will is reluctant to show Skylar his personal life. Chucky taunts him humorously, saying that if she saw his living conditions, he'd get dropped like a bad habit. Will manages to persuade him to give him his car keys. Later, Gerald meets Sean to talk about Will. He asks Sean to talk to Will about his future, as he has been getting lots of job offers that fit Will's potential. Sean thinks Will isn't ready yet, so the conversation gets heated as a conflict arises. Sean wants Will to figure out what he wants to do in life on his own, and Gerald wants him to pursue mathematics. He says he sent Will to attend a job meeting, but Will sends Chucky to the job meeting instead of him.
We tell you have my blessing, but I think we all
Chucky
know that
behaves oddly and confuses everyone in the company. Later, Will catches up with Skylar over coffee while she is working on her assignment. Skylar asks Will if he has a photographic memory, considering his intelligence and how difficult topics are so easy for him. He tells her that everyone has their strengths, and he is just naturally good at studies. Skylar tells him that she should have met him sooner. They kiss each other and end up in Skylar's bed. Skylar expresses her wish for Will to come with her to California, but Will is scared of commitment and is afraid of being abandoned. He fights with her, angrily telling her about his fear of being abandoned by her. He yells that he lied about having brothers and he's actually an abused orphan. Skylar breaks down and tells him she loves him, but he says he doesn't love her, breaking her heart. Will runs out of the office, leaving a weeping Skylar behind. Later, Will visits Professor Gerald's office and Gerald asks him about the job meeting. Will tells him that he sent Chucky instead, much to Gerald's displeasure. Will says he doesn't want to spend his life explaining stuff to people, so Gerald says he could at least show some appreciation. Will brags about how easy the proof is for him, while Gerald struggles to solve it. He burns the proof as Gerald sheepishly admits that Will has more potential than him, but he is disappointed to see him throw it all away. Will goes to a job meeting for the National Security Agency and explains to them why he wouldn't work for them.
The question is, why shouldn't you?
Why shouldn't I work for the NSA?
Instead, he prefers to visit Sean and talk with him. Sean asks Will if he has a soulmate, and he denies having one. During their discussion, Will gets defensive about how low-paying jobs aren't considered honorable. Sean understands there is honor in them. He tries to dig deeper by asking Will what he actually wants to do with his life. But Will just gets impractical again, and this time Sean simply asks him to leave because he won't tolerate his foolishness. Will and Skylar have a bittersweet phone call. He calls to check in before she leaves. She tells him she loves him, but he doesn't say anything. He sits on a bench alone while Skylar boards her flight for California. Will and Chucky are at the construction site. Chucky tells Will how he's throwing away all his potential and the intellect he has been blessed with. Basically, Chucky says the same things that Sean did, but with many more swear words, spoken like a true best friend. Meanwhile, the other two best friends, Sean and Gerald, argue over Will, with Sean defending him by saying Will is emotionally scarred. But Gerald only wants him to pursue mathematics.
Abandoned by the people who were supposed to love him the most.
Oh, come on, don't give me that.
They angrily yell at each other for things done in the past. Just then, Will walks in and Gerald leaves. Will and Sean bond with each other. They talk about their experiences with physical abuse. For the first time, Will opens up to someone and weeps like a child in Sean's arms. Will takes the train and spends a lot of time thinking. A few days later, Sean and Will meet for their final session. Will mentions his new job that he got through Gerald. Sean gives him his number and they hug each other. Later, Will visits his friends at a bar. It is his birthday and his friends give him the car they built for him as a 21st birthday present. They assembled the whole car bit by bit. The next day, Will drives his new car to Sean's place and leaves a note. Meanwhile, Chucky and the guys visit Will's place to pick him up and find him gone. It's a bittersweet moment for Chucky as Will finally took his advice. Meanwhile, Sean reads the note and gets to know that Will chose Skylar over his new job. He smiles happily, realizing that his counseling worked. Will drives to California to start over with Skylar and figure out his future with her by his side.